Hey folks, we have another evening of Isenhour Speaks Confederate Moment, and tonight's going to be an interesting one. I think y'all are really going to enjoy this, particularly our good friends, the Patriots down in Pittsburgh, North Carolina, fighting the attack on the monument down there. This is going to be probably a two-part series because we've uncovered a lot of stuff, and it's going to be too much for me to cover in one section. But we'll show a picture of here in a minute of our good friend and a hero, George Horton. That's right, friends. We are big fans of Mr. Horton. In fact, we have done a little bit of study about Mr. Horton. And he was truly, truly a unique American. I'm going to emphasize that. American. Southern American. He was born as a slave on the plantation down there, the Horton plantation in Chatham. And he ended up with one of the other brothers of the Chathams. And he had a family and was really thriving. There's a road marker that is supposedly still down in Chatham County over by the plantation. So this man was a well-known Southern poet slave. And he is indeed needs to have a lot of props for what this man did in life. So again, the thought that the Pittsburgh Patriots would put a Confederate flag up next to the Horton High School to diss this man in any way is not true. We do not have any issue with Mr. Horton. We don't have any issue whatsoever with a school named after him. In fact, we are for that. We think that's a great thing to name a man who was absolutely, I think he was probably a genius, to be honest with you. And we've gone into his life, and it's kind of a little funny way how it kind of goes back and forth. He first started, they talk about how he taught himself how to read and stuff. And I don't know a little bit about that. It's a little sketchy of how you learn how to read and stuff. But he definitely had an incredible memory because he would compose poems and stuff in his head, and then he would speak them when he was working out on the plantation or was up at the farmer's market at Chapel Hill. And people who heard him were astonished at this. And they said, wow, that's really great. Can I copy that? So they actually started knowing that he was a poet as early as 1828. Let me say that again. 1828. That's called the Antebellum South. This man was first of all able to travel from Chatham County up to Chapel Hill, up there in Hillsborough and stuff. And so, again, he must have been a very trusted slave of the Horton family. And they really thought they had someone special to him, and I believe they did believe that. So he got the notoriety of being able to talk poetry and to people, and he would sing it and do all kinds of things that people really thought it was great. And they started writing this stuff down. And then they started sending these poems that he was saying to newspapers. And guess what? They published them. And guess what? He started earning a living off this. Imagine that. Earning a living off this. It's pretty phenomenal. He was getting paid for this. In fact, they say that a lot of the students at Chapel Hill at that time were giving him 25 cents and 50 cents if he would compose a poem for them, in which he did. So it was a very lucrative, I would call this an absolute example of capitalism, and this man was an entrepreneur to begin with. Now, we also go a little bit further into his life as he started getting recognized. He got the notoriety of what he was doing, and different people, white folks, recognized his talent, and they actually helped him learn to actually read and write. He got that skill in 1832. So get this, he was publishing poems that people were writing for him. I mean, they're writing his words down in 1828. But by 1832, he could read and write. So that's amazing. And so now the man was off. He was doing books, and people were actually buying his books all over the Antebellum South. He was a well-known Southern black slave poet. So that's just phenomenal. He has a wonderful story. Now, let's get a little bit further on. I won't go so much into the war years. We're doing a little bit more study about that. But he apparently, when Sherman's troops came through North Carolina, he went with the 8th Michigan Cavalry. I'm looking more into that. So keep that in the back of your mind there. I'm not going to say anything about that now, but I've got some interesting facts that will come up at the 8th Michigan Cavalry in North Carolina at that time. However, he went on through the war, and he had some notoriety in the war that he was a poet, both North and South. In fact, when he joined the Michigan Regiment, and went with them, he came across one of the mission officers who was an abolitionist and thought that he was a great example of abolitionists, what they were talking about. They want to free these blacks. And so he became involved with the abolitionist movement up in the Massachusetts stuff. And he became, guess what? I'll say it, the poster child for the American Colonization Society. Lord help us, what was the American Colonization Society? It has a long history. A lot of people basically formed it to kick black people back to Africa. I don't know how to say it. That was the goal of the American Colonization Society, was to take black folks from this country and take them back and relocate them to Africa. Okay? So the abolitionists who wanted to actually buy his freedom, they actually raised some money to buy his freedom so that he could be shipped back to Africa, Liberia specifically. Now think about that for a second. Here is an extraordinary man, talented in every way, but the quote, the people who love the black folks and those northern folks, those abolitionists, those horrible slaves and all this kind of stuff, they didn't want him to move up to Massachusetts and be their neighbor. They wanted him to move out of the country. Now, how can you call that compassion, taking a great American and relocating to another country? In other words, instead of being, George Moses Horton of Chatham County, North Carolina, the great poet, he was going to be the George Moses Horton, the great poet of Liberia. That doesn't make sense, does it, folks? Why would you take such a talented American and ship him out of the country? For what reason would you do that? You said you want him free? Okay, I'll go along with that. But you're not free to go live next door to you in Massachusetts. You're free to get the heck out of the country. Who does that serve? What kind of rationale is that? And I've mentioned this before with some of our other Eisenhower speaks when Lincoln is part of the American Colonization Society, as you know. But anyway, just ponder that for a little bit. You want to free the guy to ship him out of the state. That's what you liberals and stuff up in Carolina wanted to do. That's crazy. Why would you do that to an American? And let's go back to another thing. Now, as after the war, it goes by George. George M. Horton is how he would be put his books, did other books. And one of them was his treatment as a free man. Now he's free. This is after the war. He moves to Philadelphia, and he's talking about the treatment of free blacks in Philadelphia, and says it's appalling. They're horrible treating him. He has whole points about how bad the Philadelphians are treating this man because he's a black man. Now wait a minute, folks. I thought this whole war was fought by them northern folks to free the black man and make him do whatever, give him American citizenship and all this stuff. But yet after the war, when he was freed, he moved and wanted to live in Philadelphia. And they treated him so badly, he wrote poetry about the degradation of how they treated him. But unless I'm mistaken, I'm a little fuzzy on my geography, Philadelphia is above the Mason-Dixon line. You get my drift. It was not down south they were treating black people this way. It was up north they were treating blacks this way. And that's just even more. So anyway, here's the tragic part of Mr. Horton's end of life. We lost track of him after Philadelphia. Most scholars, they're saying, again, we'll do a little bit more research, but most of the scholars that are reading are saying that he probably went to Liberia with his family. We don't know. Where's his family? They just kind of disappeared. So here, this great American poet, celebrated in the antebellum South, is now missing. We don't know where he is. Did he go to Liberia? And if he is, maybe his relatives are over there. I don't know. What happened to this man? You see how crazy this is? You're sitting there complaining about a Confederate flag across a high school. There's actually a Christian symbol, a Christian flag that celebrates Jesus Christ. It also celebrates the fact of freedom from tyranny. And somehow that's offensive to children at a school named after a famous black man. And he was famous. I tell you what, I wish I'd have been there with the dedication, because the man is truly a great American. And we would celebrate him. But you liberals want to take stuff in the wrong way. You don't want to celebrate his life. You want to use him. The abolitionists used him to be the poster child to ship Africans out of this country. don't come back to me and talk about Southerners are racist and all this kind of stuff. You people have no standing. In fact, you people disgust me. The way that you treat black Americans, you disgust me. You have no reason to come after us the way you are and calling us racist. You are the racists. You are the bad people. You are the ones that exploit folks. You are lying about history. So I would love to tell the history of George Moses Horton, and we will do another series on this because it gets more interesting, folks. Oh, George, let me tell you something. He's led us to some amazing things about this. And so we're going to talk some more about this educational program about George Moses Horton down in Chatham County. You liberals now stay tuned. And incidentally, bring some duct tape for the next time because I know your heads are already exploding. And if you don't have duct tape, that's your fault. But we're going to tell the truth about this man. And again, he is a great American. And there's no reason that you should be attacking the good citizens of Pittsburgh because they put a flag across from a school named after this man. That is ridiculous. So y'all have a good evening, and we'll talk to y'all later. Look forward to your comments on the page. Bye-bye.